5,000 years ago, in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, a miracle of human history was born. For the first time, humanity turned mud into brick, brick into cities, and cities into civilization. The Sumerians had invented writing, built temples, and studied the stars. Yet each city-state had its own laws and its own gods. Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Uma, a land divided by borders and ambition. Then came a man from beyond those borders, a man with a vision, a name that would echo for millennia, Sargon. Sometimes an entire civilization is reborn in the mind of one person. According to legend, Sargon's beginnings were humble. He grew up near a river, not in palaces, but among ordinary people. What set him apart was not his birth, but his vision. He believed that people could rise above division and find unity in purpose. A radical idea in a world built on rivalry. Yet history shows us this truth. The ideas that seem impossible often become the most enduring. Sargon chose a small settlement in the north, Akkad, as his base. It would become more than a city, a symbol, a capital, a vision. Akkad adopted the culture of Sumer, but added structure and order. People no longer belonged only to their city, they belonged to a greater whole, an empire. It was the birth of a new idea, the first notion of a nation. True power is born not from weapons, but from hearts that beat for the same flag. The strength of Akkad was not in its armies, but in its organization. Sargon created the world's first postal system. Messages were carried on clay tablets between cities. For the first time, a nation was governed through communication. He standardized taxation, trade, and storage systems. Grain, oil, and metals were carefully recorded and distributed. Order replaced chaos. Law replaced chance. A civilization is not protected by walls, but by structure. Sargon understood that faith could unite people. In earlier times, each city had its own god. Under Akkad, the gods became shared among all. Temples were not only places of worship, but centers of knowledge and record-keeping. Priests became the first administrators and scholars. Belief turned into a foundation for civilization itself. Faith is true power only when it brings people together. Sargon did not declare himself a god, but saw his rule as a divine duty. His authority rested not on fear, but on respect. In every city, Akkadian law applied. Trade routes were safe, and for the first time, justice was the same across vast lands. Centuries later, Babylon and Assyria would adopt the same model. A leader's purpose is not to create fear, but to create hope. Sargon's grandson, Naram-Sin, inherited his empire and his ambition. But the idea of rule had changed. Naram-Sin was no longer the servant of the gods. He was seen as a god himself. Art and architecture reached new heights. Reliefs depicted him wearing a crown of stars, standing between earth and heaven, a symbol of the divine bridge between mortal and eternal. It was the first fully formed concept of the divine king, and as with all ideas, change would eventually follow. Over time, nature shifted. Rain grew scarce, rivers changed course, and the land became tired. Society faced challenges it had never known. Yet this was not a collapse. It was a transformation. Akkad's systems, language, and ideas survived long after its cities fell silent. Sargon's model became the blueprint for civilization itself. Empires may fade, but ideas endure. From Akkad came Babylon, Assyria, and Persia, each built upon its foundation. Administration, laws, bureaucracy, postal routes, all traced back to that first empire. Even today, echoes of Akkad live within modern governments and communication systems. What once moved on the clay tablets now flows through digital networks. The same idea, a new form. Akkad was not just a civilization. It was the map of the human mind. Sargon's name still echoes through stone tablets, but his true legacy lives in our consciousness. He taught humanity that unity is born not from fear, but from understanding. Every empire begins as a thought, a belief that people can stand together. The Sumerians began human history. The Akkadians united it, and that union became the heartbeat of civilization itself. Stones crumble, tablets break, but an idea lives forever in the memory of humanity. This is the story of Akkad, the first empire and perhaps the first dream of unity.